The French cartographers carve out little bits of the border, the two temple areas, and essentially throw it into the French protectorate area. This is not consistent. It's fairly well acknowledged that if we're debating the 1904 map, and we're debating the map questions, that, as a colleague once said to me, well, Cambodia has the better maps. Cambodia generally takes a better win on that side. Malaysia is the ASEAN chair. This is not ASEAN acting in any capacity. ASEAN has a principle of non-interference. And many folks look at this and say, well, why isn't ASEAN doing anything? Very practically, ASEAN can't. That's it. But Malaysia, as the chair, is able to do so. But the moment Thailand got into election season, with 45 or however many days away, the tariff is a threat to long-term economic development and growth. It is not something that is going to hit in the next 45 days. If you are a government in the midst of an election, what you care about is the next 45 days. So if someone says we're going to hit you with this in 6 months, I don't care.
Ensure there is a lasting peace. Cambodia defense capability need to be there. Moving forward is the role of the joint boundary committee for these two countries to come up with a way to fixing the difference between these two maps.
Very much hope you'll forgive me if I present while sitting down. I'm getting over a very bad cold, and I'm not going to make 20 minutes standing up. So you'll get a better presentation with a sedentary mode rather than poise and standing. So I guess Chongpur and I actually, about a couple of months ago, we were in Vientiane in Laos for the New Zealand government's annual Mekong Dialogue. And to my knowledge, that was also, at that point, I think this is the only Track 2 dialogue that has taken place so far on the context of Cambodia and Thailand and the recent conflict, which is very telling. It's very telling because Track 2 diplomacy is usually a very key element of this. But the tensions have simply been so high that even engaging at that level, beyond the diplomatic level, has been very minimal. And I think it's also important to note that most people don't recognize now is that diplomatic relations between Cambodia and Thailand have downgraded to the level now of second secretary status at each other's embassies. This is a purely functional level of engagement. So there's quite a while to go back. So my job this evening, in my limited amount of time, and I promise that I shall stay on time, is to be a bit of the depressing person, the bit of the guy telling a bit of the history, but also a not so optimistic story. Hopefully Chongpur, when he gives his presentation, will be able to march us forward to a peaceful and happy future. But I'm here to bring us to the rather grim and unpleasant military present. So let's scroll back in history. Let's make sure we all have our border history, the basic potted history down. So the first discussion of the settlement of the border essentially comes in the 1904 Franco-Siamese Treaty. And this document is very important. This document is very important because it sets down a principle. It sets down the principle that the border between Thailand and the French protectorate of Cambodia would fundamentally be established based upon the watershed along the range of the Dam Rap Mountains. And this is the principle that is essentially carved out in the initial treaty. However, when they finally come to doing the actual treaty in 1907 and French cartographers make the official map, and this map is generally referred to as Annex 1, the French cartographers carve out little bits of the border, the two temple areas, and essentially throw it into the French protectorate area. This is not consistent with the 1904 agreement, which you might think would give a very significant case to Thailand on this. But in fact, it doesn't, because Thailand did not object to the 1907 maps at the time, and they lasted for such a lengthy period of time that they were viewed as Thailand essentially de facto accepted this. And practically speaking, I would say an engagement with Thai colleagues who work on this topic, who are experts on this topic, it's fairly well acknowledged that if we're debating the 1904 map, and we're debating the map questions, that, as a colleague once said to me, well, Cambodia has the better maps. Cambodia generally takes a better win on that side. And we see this develop in the 1950s and 1960s through international jurisprudence. And obviously right after independence in '53, we see the occupation of the temple for the first time by Thailand, and this issue comes to the fore. And Cambodia takes this issue to the International Tribunal for Justice, and ultimately gets a ruling in its favor. And very importantly, in that ruling, what we see is the court rejecting the approach by Thailand, saying, well, look at the 1904 treaty, it says this, but the 1907 map says this. But the argument is ruled that, hey, you guys accepted this essentially for 40 years, for 50 years. You can't go back. You essentially, qui tacit consentire, he who remains silent essentially consents to the agreement. And so Thailand's case historically has never been hugely strong. The maps are very strong. Cambodia has a very strong record going to international tribunals. Subsequently, we obviously saw that during the period of the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, this all calms down. This is not a flashpoint because we have so many other painfully complex things going on. But in 2008, we see this again take place, and ultimately a further ruling from the ICJ in Cambodia's favor following periods of violence. So this brought us to essentially a period of relative stability, relative calm, relative equilibrium that lasted until earlier this year. In terms of the causality, I think this is very important to point out, and is very important to note, and I say this speaking as a political scientist. Throughout my dialogues on this topic with Thai colleagues, with other colleagues from ASEAN and other countries, the origin of this conflict in going back earlier this year, in February, March, etc., there is fault on both sides. The general view is that there have been actions on both sides, whether it's digging of trenches, whether it's entering other territory, etc., that way back when this started, this was moving towards something that was going to become problematic. And there were certain elements of tit for tat on both sides. So I think it's vital to go into this with a very realistic and pragmatic view that the full origin story of this is not set out. It is not clear as crystal. It is not simply, oh, X did Y, and so on and so forth. But that can still move us not away from reaching a decent understanding of where things settle today. We just have to accept, I think, that the evidence is not there. So how did we get to the initial Kuala Lumpur Joint Declaration? Fairly straightforward. Obviously, the United States and China both jump in. The United States is essentially the country that is able to enforce a very coercive outcome on both Cambodia and Thailand in terms of, hey, if you don't like this, if you don't stop this, what's coming? Well, we're all waiting on the tariff outcome. And it's a few days away, so this was a very significant temporal win for the United States. It was able to basically to marshal this enormous weapon that it had, and this was able to, in the short term, essentially say, yeah, okay, stop the fighting, or else you will bear significant medium to long-term economic consequences. China also took a significant role as well, mostly behind the scenes, meetings in Shanghai between the two sides. China had initially wanted this to go through its new global solidarity, bargaining, negotiating thing, which no one really had any appetite for. Everyone really wanted this to be sent back to ASEAN, and thus we get it under Malaysia, taking the role of lead actor because Malaysia's role is chair, along with the US and China essentially being supportive guarantors of this initial agreement. Really important thing to note here. Malaysia has been acting as Malaysia. Malaysia is the ASEAN chair. This is not ASEAN acting in any capacity. ASEAN has a principle of non-interference. And many folks look at this and say, well, why isn't ASEAN doing anything? Very practically, ASEAN can't. That's it. But Malaysia, as the chair, is able to do so. And I just want to clear this up because if, like me, you're checking all this on social media, and if like me, you're screaming in your office half the day because you see so much misinformation. So just making sure that we're all clear on that. So we had a seemingly workable ceasefire. A lot of people, myself, Chungpur, we were, I think at the time, quite optimistic as to how this was going to go. And ultimately, we saw things change. Now, why? Why was this ultimately shifted? And the question here and where things are going relates to not questions of regional security, but rather questions of domestic politics, in my view. So we have to look at how this played out and how this is going to continue to play out since the resumption of the fighting, very much through the lens of what we call two-level games in political science by Robert Putnam. And the idea here is that if we understand international relations, and I'm in a school called neoclassical realism, which means we accept realist assumptions, but we also think domestic politics matters. And that if you're going to understand foreign policy and security outcomes, you fundamentally have to understand domestic politics. So and this can also help us to disaggregate a little bit and begin to understand better how this is working in negotiation. So China, the United States, ASEAN to some extent, or Malaysia at least, do have the ability to impose costs on Thailand. Absolutely. There's many, many things they can do. So let's run through each of them and what their options really are at this point. For the United States, the story of the United States and the question of why hasn't the United States intervened? Why hasn't the United States intervened? What will they do? How can they intervene? And so on and so forth. The story of that side is essentially the US has over time declining influence on this topic for the very simple reason that the tariff thing was a one-off. And it was going to be very successful in July. But the moment Thailand got into election season, with 45 or however many days away, the tariff is a threat to long-term economic development and growth. It is not something that is going to hit in the next 45 days. If you are a government in the midst of an election, what you care about is the next 45 days. So if someone says, we're going to hit you with this in 6 months, I don't care. We'll talk about this after the election. Why? Because I know if I backtrack, if I am the Thai government and I am backtracking on this issue, my opposition is going to take advantage of it, I'm going to lose my supporters, and I'm going to very seriously risk tanking the entire election. So previously, when the US threatened this, the Thai government had much longer time horizons. Now that we're into an election, the time horizons are much, much shorter. And the issue here is very simply that it's very difficult for any foreign government to be able to change the domestic politics, even if at the international level it would seem to be feasible. China, conversely, has played, I think, a much more interesting role here, even though it's been more behind the scenes, et cetera. And currently what we have is essentially China going to Thailand saying, hey, there's diplomatic off-ramps for this, there's things you can do, there's ability to basically get out of this and bring back peace and security and so on and so forth. Which sounds wonderful. It sounds like a great thing. But let's put it into the calculus of a Thai politician or Thai government, which is pretty straightforward. Okay, thank you, China. You just told me that if this thing drags out and there's problems, I will be able to basically end it. I will be able to get out. Do I have to do that now? No, but I could do that in 45 or 50 days. What the China not actually pushing while keeping these open does is essentially increase the size of what we call the win set for Thailand at the international level, but does nothing to change the win set at the domestic level. There is nothing at the domestic level by this existing that says, hey, yeah, make these changes, come to the table, et cetera. Because the domestic politics hasn't changed. The only thing that has changed in the domestic politics is actually it's become, from the polling, much, much, much more opposed to concession on this topic. So at this stage, we have essentially a US that doesn't have the tool that it had previously. We have a China that very much doesn't want to overextend itself. China doesn't want to be in the position whereby if it takes Cambodia's side, then okay, this ends, and then Thailand is going to be very, very angry with them. It takes Thailand's side, probably actually much worse for China, because how many times have we said 5-star ironclad friendship? And there's some questions about that now as to whether that's actually the case. But no one wants to be on the side when the other one's going to be opposed. So I think this is really essential to note, because this demonstrates much more than many other things we've seen in the region recently, really how US-Chinese rivalry is having an impact in the region. There is stasis, because the US doesn't want to be the one or China doesn't want. You don't want to be the one to lose the other party if you intervene first. So this becomes a relatively significant issue moving ahead. So where are we likely to move ahead? Where are we likely to essentially finish this, move forward and finish this out? Essentially, I would say that as this moves ahead, we're not likely to see any sort of resolution, any stable new equilibrium, until ultimately after the Thai elections and after the formation of a new and stable Thai government. The simple reality is that the domestic politics haven't changed in a way that would facilitate the current Thai government providing some degree of concession. Because immediately, if the Thai government does that, you've given massive, massive, massive ammunition to the opposition. So the politics, in my view, simply aren't there. And I'm not seeing significant mechanisms for it to improve in the short term. This is something I think that we're going to have to ride out. The only alternative, really, is if a large, great power like the United States or China came in and said, okay, stop, or there will be immediate economic costs. This will hurt you now. Not in 6 months, not after the election. This will hurt you now. This is a sanctioning mechanism that we can apply. But I don't see a world where that's going to happen. I don't see a world where China wants to risk one of its relationships. And I don't see a world right now where the US is putting the priority on this, and also the same trade-off. Neither state wants to lose a long-term ally that's very important to them. So this does not put us in the happiest overall of places in terms of the next few months and where things are going. At the same time, we do have some things to look forward to. Malaysia will be staying on, and both governments have asked that Malaysia do continue the mediation process. And Malaysia has really done more, or as much as it possibly can, as ASEAN chair. And I think that's vital to recognize. But it also demonstrates that the limits in terms of what ASEAN can do in light of the principle of non-intervention and non-intervention in neighboring politics. So ultimately, in my view, we're looking again at a very slow period. Malaysia hopefully involved. Malaysia is involved. It'll be very interesting to see as Malaysia's term comes to an end in December, whether or not we get a shift, the role that the Philippines will take, which is going to be very interesting. But the other thing we have to note is we're coming into a new ASEAN chairmanship. We're also coming into a new ASEAN chairmanship with a very clear priority for it. Philippines' priority is overwhelmingly a code of conduct agreement on the South China Sea. They do not want to see anything cast that to one side or cause any problems. So this is not a challenge, the current conflict, that anybody really wants to see continue. But unfortunately, I think the domestic politics of it mean that we're stuck for a bit.
So good evening, everybody. I think Dr. Bradley Merck have set a very high bar for me to come into the second speaker. But this is a moment of sadness and anguish for many of us here. I think the war is never a good expectation, or it's never a desired outcome for anybody who desire or who value human dignity and human life as equals. So while Dr. Bradley have meticulously provided all the background and context you need for this conflict, I'm pleased to offer initiative for lasting peace, which will not happen, I can say, before the Thai election in early February. And so we're gonna see the next difficult 45 days until the Thai election, especially when I see the opinion poll in Thailand coming out today that the current Prime Minister is still 12% in terms of the overall popularity, running behind the opposition leader at 17%. We can expect that he, in the first place, create a nationalistic expectation for the nationalist, ultra-nationalist camp in Thailand. He's gonna go in for more, if not an even reinforced fighting, but also a justified victory that can save face for both himself and military until the elections. So I'm going to provide the initiative for lasting peace. I'm waiting for counter-offer, counter-initiative, counter-proposals from all of you here, but also from people on the other side of the border as well, who desire for peaceful coexistence. We should be an overall aim for people here. But be sure what's part of my proposal can be discounted as fantasy by some, as idealistic by the other. So it will be it could be highly unlikely to see the end of the day for my proposal to be a success, but I'm happy to discuss further. To provide some context, just to add on Dr. Bradley, Cambodia is for its own. You look at the geography, is its own version of a prisoner of geography, living between these two neighbors, which Cambodia have consistently viewed as security threat for a long time. But so, in the current context of weak international law, fragmented international order, also make it even easier for these things to happen, for the fact that people with might, people with power to think, to pursue, and to act, that they could bypass rules and violate the other as well. So in order for a lasting peace, I have three parts of proposal. First proposal would be the reinforcement of Cambodia defense capability. So you would ask, if we talk about lasting peace, why are we talking about the militarization of Cambodia even more? Cambodia need two things: that if there is a notion that Thai politicians and conservative establishment have the perception that they could go to war before the election, or to divert attention from domestic call for institutional reform on the military and the power that be in Thailand, why not they go for Laos? Why not they go for Myanmar? Why not they go for Malaysia? Why choosing Cambodia? Because there is a consistent and persistent perception that Cambodia would be an easy target, because they feel Cambodia is weaker, they feel Cambodia is having smaller capability. So my proposal would be to ensure there is a lasting peace. Cambodia defense capability need to be there. And you may have you could think about different way of boosting Cambodian defense capability as a deterrent. That not only you have to prepare for war, but also to strategically communicate to the neighboring country that Cambodia would have the capability and it would be higher cost for any escalation in the future. So the modernization and reinforcement of Cambodia defense capability for Cambodian strategic thinker would be to think about smart investment on modern and future warfare that we have seen quite actively being used now. Because both sides have not officially declared war against each other now. According to Thai constitution, according to Cambodian constitution, it's still a conflict, not an open war between each other. So it's some sort of hybrid warfare. And even though we could secure some sort of ceasefire or peace deal even, if this momentum is going to continue, you will be going to see much more of a hybrid warfare between the two countries in the long term, if not on conventional realm, but also on the unconventional realm, for example, on information discourse between these two, because at least on the other side of the border, there is military command specifically for information operation of this sort of kind. So we're gonna see this kind of context going forward of a hybrid warfare without any attempt, any effort to build a lasting peace between the two countries. But also to reinforce Cambodia defense would be to boost competitiveness on the hybrid warfare in both conventional and non-conventional spectrum for Cambodia. But also at the same time, there is a need to close gap of this imbalance of power or perception of the imbalance of power to convince the other side of the border that the imbalance is no longer that wide. So you need to close that gap of the imbalance, also the perception of the imbalance of power, so that when there is such kind of diversion from domestic politics from Thailand in the future, they would think twice. Also, final point of the reinforcement of Cambodia defense capability would be to buy time with what I'm going to present later as well on what we call the functional stability. That the reconciliation may take place, may take time. So with a small window, a small period of stability, if we can see in the future, in the near future, there could be ceasefire, there could be some kind of a deal, whatever it is, between the two countries. Cambodia should use that golden hour to project and to develop itself by even more on defense capability. So without strong defense, without strong strength when it comes to military power and smart investment in defense capability on Cambodian side, we are going to see repeated cycle of anguish, repeated cycle of violence taking place between the two countries, because there is a perception on the other side that Cambodia would be an easy target. So moving forward, imposing costs on escalation would be an option. Second, on the bilateralism or multilateralism's approach when it comes to settling out the conflicts. Cambodia should go all in with the internationalization of this conflict and the internationalization of the conflict resolution. Moving forward, I think we have to look beyond the Thai elections, looking into the future, that any internationalization or regionalization that we have seen earlier this year, trying to get America involved, trying to get China involved, trying to get ASEAN involved, or ASEAN chair involved with the role of Malaysia, it needs to be institutionalized. And it was cut off in the process when the build-up of the ASEAN observer team have been there. It's on the way there, but we have this relapse, the conflict happening. So in the future, we need to get the international community involved, especially the key actors who have power and stake in these conflicts. Second is to boost transparency and accountability when it comes to the weapon of destruction that each side perceive on each other. For example, on the Thai side, perceive Cambodia using anti-personnel landmine. Cambodia accused Thailand of using white phosphorus cluster bombs during the conflicts. So in the future, after the ceasefire, there should be a mechanism for taking a page from the playbook of the IAEA on disarmament of nuclear weapons, but also looking into the monitoring and verification of the stockpile usage of this kind of material in both countries to provide transparency. So transparency would be key to let and to provide assurance to each other that could be a resolution for lasting peace as well. Next one, within the internationalization of the peace process, the preventive diplomacy should be there as well when it comes to trying to, for example, looking into the early warning system, taking a page from the playbook of disaster management. So track 2, track 1.5, and track 1 should go together, come up with the team, and monitor the situation routinely and regularly, and trying to provide early warning system to leader, especially to stakeholder outside the region as well, in case there is a momentum toward a conflict or relapse of the conflict in the future. And also on the border map, we have seen the two countries have been using two different maps. One map, as Dr. Bradley have particularly mentioned, the French map in 1907 and the American-made assisted map for Thailand on the scale of 1/50,000, which shows some sort of difference. Also have been one of the core reason for this conflict as well. So moving forward is the role of the Joint Boundary Committee for these two countries to come up with a way to fixing the difference between these two maps. But to boost even more confidence and to assert more technical expertise into these two maps, we should invite the two parties who initiate this map from the first place into some sort of technical observations in the committee as well, which is the front in the United States, who have been assisting the production of these two maps in the first place. Doing so, these two countries would be more, have more stakeholders to get involved, it's more inclusive. So we talk about the technicality of the map and the mapping system much more than a political process in the future. And the last proposal would be the marathon of the peace process. When I say this, it sounds like idealistic, but my proposal would be to promote strategic dialogue after the conflict have been settled, or I can say the functional stability that we are going to see after, hopefully after the Thai elections. between the formal institution between the two countries to provide assurance. The change note from time to time would be key to promote stability between the two countries. That on the formal level, formal channels. But we understand there are power broker behind the scenes in Thailand, also both in Cambodia. There should be quiet and unofficial engagement between the power broker in the two countries as well. That we to ensure and to provide assurance to each other of their intention, but also to communicate for Cambodian side to communicate what I said earlier about the strategic deterrent for ourselves as well, to provide because deterrent will work if it is credible and well communicated. So when Cambodia build up its own defense capability that can convince the other side that any escalation would be at higher cost, it should be properly communicated and quite directly in any way possible to the power broker, not even in Thailand, but also to other power broker in the region as well. It's a long process, but the other proposal within this marathon of the peace process would be the people-to-people exchange. It sounds weird to say it now, given all the suffering or the hate or the anguish that people have felt as a result of these conflicts. But I repeat what many people have been saying. You are not going to move Thailand anywhere. You're not going to move Cambodia anywhere. It's a matter of fact that these two countries need to stay alongside each other for a long period of time in the future. So moving forward, the track 2, track 1.5 people, like-minded individuals in the academy and the think tank between these two countries, and as Dr. Bradley have said earlier, since July, there's only that one track 2 dialogue among the two countries. Especially, it's not even the bilateral engagement, it's multilateral engagement within a Mekong sub-regions. But the track 2 between the two countries should have the courage to offer the dialogue and the talk about what's going to happen in the future, especially on the teaching of the history in the two countries, that there should be more dialogue, not only between the academia, but also between the student and young people in the two countries. We may have different versions of the history on a single event in the past, talking about the fall of Long Veng, or Cambodia's so-called dark age after Angkorian periods, the occupation of the Thai and the intervention of the Vietnamese between the Angkorian period and the arrival of the French. There should be more dialogue on that. And now, even more importantly, there should be more dialogue between the people, between these two on the current events. That to discuss more, to compare notes, what they feel about it, what they perceive about it, what are the evidence. So we focus on evidence. What are the evidence that people have in both sides of the border? Doing so in the long run, I'm not optimistic this is going to happen before Thai election, immediately after Thai election, but it could be in the long run. Taking a page from the playbook of member of European Union as a result of the World War II, there have been more dialogue between students, between young people on a single event that could have been used as a trigger for wider conflict or relapse of the conflict itself. So we could take a moment and get good example from the other side of the world and try different way, try different proposal, trying to propose things with the right question, how we can live next to each other in a manner of peaceful coexistence, in a manner of mutual respect between the two people. So that will be the work of not exclusively exclusively to the leadership level, but also a matter of the people between the two border as well, to ask themselves, especially next line of defense of this attempt to build a lasting peace. After the top leadership, it would be the track 1.5 and track 2, the academia, the think tanks, also the students who have access more to empirical evidence, empirical information to come up and have honest discussion about this event. Also, what they want to see themselves living next to each other in the future. So that will be the end of my presentation. I'm happy to engage in any question you may have alongside Dr. Bradley. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. May Wong from the Straits Times, Singapore newspaper. I just want to play the devil's advocate here because a lot of the narrative has been said that it's Thailand's internal politics that's prolonging and causing this war. What makes you say that and truly believe in that, and that there are no other external factors that's fueling this conflict? My second question is, I know the theme is looking ahead, and Kor has outlined several measures which are very useful for the future. But more immediately, can you talk about how likely is Cambodia going to actually accede to the conditions laid out by Thailand to stop this war as they have laid out? And also, what does it really take now to put a stop to this as soon as possible? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So on the first, so in my presentation I made probably the least popular comment I make in Cambodia when I talk about this, which is that I do not cast blame on who started it back at the beginning. And that's also precisely because as a political scientist, I look at this and see this war happening yielded massive political benefits for both sides, not just for Thailand, for Cambodia. And we have to recognize that. It's very simple. And if you look at friends of yours on social media, friends who might have had various different views towards the Cambodian government 6 months ago, and you look at their social media feed today, just anecdotally, yeah, lots of change there, lots of change, which is very normal. Rally around the flag effects are consistent in every single country. And the enormous popular swell of popular nationalism has done enormous amounts to consolidate popular support around the government here. My view, though, is that those gains were taken off the table months ago. That there was no further interest in the Cambodian government, by the Cambodian government, to continue this, precisely because that consolidation had happened and the costs began to mount up and only became significantly higher. Cambodia does not have an election in the short term. Cambodia does not have an election for quite a while. And at this stage, that nationalist win, which you really don't, which is also very useful for regime framing and for the transition from Prime Minister Hun Sen to Hun Manet, but Cambodia doesn't have that immediate issue at hand. Thailand does. Thus, when we look at the renewal of the fighting, we do see a shift in the political variables for each side. So that's why I think in my view, as this thing has moved forward and where we are at present, that the political gains internally are overwhelmingly on the Thai side. I was telling a colleague the other day, I think the first time that Cambodia actually won the media war was the day that the Thai Prime Minister came out and called an election. It could not have been more obvious, I think, to a lot of the world that, okay, this is happening again, and oh yes, we're going to call an election, which we have to do anyway. So that would be that on that one. Yeah. The second was on, the
current situation, what does it really take, you know?
Oh, for the yeah, I in my view, and again, I say this as someone who spends a lot of time in Thailand. I mean, I'm a firm believer that as soon as this is over, let's rebuild the relationship because it's economically essential. I honestly don't see that as a legitimate offer in terms of this is what's necessary to go back to the table. I think that is a delay. I think we're going to see more and more of this. And my view is generally that we'll probably see some sort of agreement, no agreement, or something small that will tamp this down, but we're not going to see an end to at least sporadic conflict until the election afterwards.
Yeah, for the first question, the reaching of the Kuala Lumpur peace agreement, also the ceasefire back in July, have been seen and portrayed as a big win for the government here in Cambodia. Big win at the same time that it reinforced the narrative about peace and stability here, and whoever guaranteed the peace and stability in Cambodia. But also, it comes with a hard to achieve trade deal with the United States. We also perceive as a big win for the government to be able to secure while at the same time many other countries have not secured. So there is no point for Cambodia to, this time around, for the relapse of the conflict to escalate again the conflict, or to initiate and trigger the relapse of the conflict. There is no point for Cambodian government to do so. But I totally agree with Dr. Bradley on that. On the Thai side, that you have the election. But even before Prime Minister Anutin Chanvirakul called for election in 60 or 45 days, the election have been always on the horizons. Election calling have been on the horizon throughout the period of the tenure of the Prime Minister, because he came to power as a minority government with the support from the opposition based on this memorandum of agreement, the so-called MOA, that he gonna get an election done in 4 months, and then have a charter change and a number of the other conditions. So, and his popularity before the vote and before the escalation is not there. Even after the escalation of the conflict, and now we have entered the 12 or 11th day of the conflict, his popularity is not that higher as expected. So what I'm worried now, going to the second question, is whether or not he or the Thai government or Thai military gonna reinforce the fighting even harder before the election. But going out, there's other option, which both sides need a face savings options for both governments. But also on the Thai side, there could be the declaration of a justified win, some sort of neutralization of Cambodian threat, for example, no matter how substantial it is on the ground, but some sort of victory, flag raising ceremony on the border, reclaim area that we have seen a few points already, which up for verifications. So we are going to see this option as well. But if the Prime Minister of Thailand could not see his popularity going up before the election, regardless, despite trying with this war already, we are not going to see a substantial end, a ceasefire on the horizon, I think, in coming days. Hopefully in weeks, but I'm not optimistic, unless both sides can claim justified win for themselves as a result of the end of the fighting. The Malaysia side, because we have seen inactive ASEAN as an institution, but Malaysia as a chair have been quite more active. Also, have to look at also the move by the Philippines as well as the incoming chair, whether or not, if Dr. Bradley prediction would be correct, that their whole agenda and the priority next year would be entirely about the COC at the South China Sea. If so, I'm not quite optimistic about the outcome. As ASEAN have been that inactive. They came up with the 5-point consensus of Myanmar, and now 4 or 5 years later, the problem is still there. Myanmar is going to hold a sham election quite soon. So I'm not that optimistic unless there is some surprising evidence being shown by Malaysia and who trigger first. It's gonna be game changing, but it's gonna be unprecedented as well in terms of ASEAN diplomacy.
Yeah, ASEAN at the end of the day is wonderful at managing conflicts, usually that we're already at some sort of agreement, and managing it and moving it back towards normalcy and towards trust. I mean, historically not great at ending conflicts in light of the just limited toolbox that ASEAN has. But on the foreign ministers meeting, I think there's just 2 points I want to make. The first is, I've seen a lot of commentary saying, oh, Thailand canceled this, Thailand, no. This was rescheduled because a few people who are ASEAN foreign ministers had other commitments and they needed to move the thing. So this was not some dastardly plot. But if we are going to see something, I mean, that is in the near term that's positive, yeah, I would think it would go through, just because ASEAN does at least have the ability to provide a face-saving cover for everyone. Yeah. I mean, that is one of the things it does very, very well. At the same time, Malaysia was not expecting this during their chairmanship. The Malaysian chairmanship has been overwhelmingly successful otherwise, and I know Malaysia across the board is actively looking for looking for a solution and sees this as part of a legacy of an otherwise very successful chairmanship. And even their mediation so far has been seriously impressive, at least moving ahead. But again, this is, you only can do what you can with the tools you have. And the other thing that will come out of this is, I mean, if Myanmar was not enough for the discussions in ASEAN to be, oh dear God, we have to have some conversations about the structure of this institution, this one, this is, for those of us who work in that world of let's hypothesize wither ASEAN, oh yeah, lots of policy papers coming out next year.
View on the social media, I found out the EU will involve, but in terms of turn of the satellite to escalate to ensure that both countries come back for the ceasefire. And I would like to hear from your opinion in terms of the geopolitical perspective when the EU involved.
EU? I didn't hear about this.
Yeah, quite new to me as well. Maybe happening when we deliver the first 30 minutes.
The EU, the European Union, recently they has been announced in Cambodia website, in the Cambodian website, that they will open the satellite, offer the satellite to ensure that the fire was not happen again.
Oh, okay. So no, yeah. So if wonderful development. I mean, because at this point, any increase in monitoring is positive. There's still so much lack of clarity as to okay, who did what, who caused what, and Prime Minister Hun Manet did say, okay, yeah, use your satellites. He has to tell the United States. But so the European Union coming up with this, any additional data, any additional eyes in the sky on this, do act as a deterrent for future flare-ups once we get this one calmed down.
Yeah. Cambodia would like that very much. In terms of international light conflicts, getting everybody involved. Also, it also stay on, if confirmed, it's also stay for European Union. We always ask why European Union or Germany or France get involved in the Pacific, especially in Cambodia. I would say, unfortunately, very perceived as very little strategic interest to them, but it's more about defending. The European Union foreign policy has been always about defending international law, international order, liberal international order. So it could be a part of that. If confirmed, I think Cambodian government would be thrilled to get that involvement from European Union. Yeah.
Malaysia did offer in the last couple of days releasing the image, the video whatsoever, to sort of reveal who maybe started the war, who is doing what as well. But the two countries made a proposal to hold that sort of revelation. Yeah. And I was just doubting, what does it mean? If both countries want to end the war, why those sort of satellite image matter? And
oh, go ahead. Sorry, you got me ready to go. Well, I think it goes to just on the question of why wouldn't you? And this is again hypothetical. I haven't heard that specifically. But hypothetically, if both governments said this. To my view, it goes very much to the position on the causality and the start that there's fault on both sides. But the problem is if there is fault on both sides, this seriously has an impact upon your nationalist narrative and so on and so forth. So it's not a win for either side's domestic politics if the narrative you're saying the other side started, it turns out you both started it. Or this was something that snowballed into something nobody wanted. Because if that doesn't help build trust, it really kicks you in the teeth. But again, hypothetical.
And then there is this sort of theory about de-escalation. So sort of, I don't know who talk about de-escalation, if Thai talk about this escalation, if Cambodia talk about this escalation. But what has been noticed is that Cambodia is sort of quite well prepared for the war this time in the sense of weapons that they're having, and that is the source that I got from social media only. It's subject to more investigation. What would you say about that as well?
Linking to the first question about satellite, when they talk about who start the relapse of the conflict, who start the conflict again, maybe the whole thing about satellite is not about who triggered the conflict, but to prevent the next trigger of the conflicts, to deter the people whoever have the intention to initiate the conflict again, to be mindful that you have the eye above the sky looking at you, but also To reinforce on the satellite imagery, the observer team on the ground also very, very important. So it should not be exclusive to the ASEAN observer team. There should be other independent body from track 1, track 1.5, track 2 to get involved in the observer and independent investigation as well, whether or not it's about the landmine, whether or not it's about the other thing, the use of cluster bomb, the use of white phosphorus in the battle zones or in the civilian area. There should be involvement and verification from the third party who are not the state actor as well.
Thank you. I would like to ask a question about Thai politics. Given the structural shift from network monarchy to direct royal command under Thai King Rama X, can we consider the recent border conflict escalation as a strategic synchronization between the Thai royal palace and the Thai military? Or does the military retain the autonomy to act without tacit royal consent?
Do you want to start?
I could start, could try on the first, but by looking at in the context, 5 years ago, starting from 2000, when the start of the pandemic, there was this twice dissolution of the opposition party in Thailand. And then after the dissolution, there've been consistent protests, and which later on calling for institutional reform in the what they call the constant institution in Thailand, also which both the palace and the military. So this is the context that domestically there is a call for reform, institutional reform, unprecedented call for reform in Thailand, which predate the conflicts right now.
Yeah.
But it's a correlation again.
It's correlational, not necessarily causational.
Yeah.
But again, and the argument as a correlational argument does make sense. Yes, it's in the interest of, I mean, obviously the monarchy and the military have a very, very long history of very close collaboration in Thailand. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. Along those lines, that there's an element there. That being said, we have the hard data is more challenging to get, but it does make sense, particularly as Chengpor noted, the question of especially the last election in Thailand, with the remarkable statements by the opposition about the future of the monarchy and so on and so forth. So that is a new challenge to the Thai monarchy that really hasn't been expressed as widely as we saw in the last election. So that's something on the table. So I think you make an important point.
Let's talk about the motivation of each side. For the current Prime Minister in Thailand, he want to win like population, gain more population, while Cambodia want to end the war as soon as possible and sell the people. So, but in Thailand they have to compete with 3 parties. Given this statement, do you think that Cambodia government may work with Thai royalists and military, as well as the current transition prime minister, to keep the war going, and but they try to minimize the impact, so they just fight along the border, so that the current prime minister can gain more population in the upcoming election in February. This is maybe narrow-minded, but I just want to.
Hey, it's always good to look at different hypotheticals and different possibilities and so on and so forth. In this case, though, I don't think there's coordination between the two, between the two sides to prolong this. There's nothing from the Cambodian, one part from Cambodia and one part from Thailand working along these. I think we are genuinely at a situation of non-engagement. It looked like with the KL Accord, everything was very, very positive. And at the KL Agreement, there were already talks of, okay, how do we rebuild and reopen diplomatic relations? And really, really clear statements as to what comes next, which is one of the reasons many of us were optimistic. So I think, especially after this blew up, that any coordination would be also a gigantic political risk. I can't imagine taking if that ever came out, I mean, welcome to chaos. So the risk aversion among a regular politician, I think, would prevent it.
I'm not sure which political party in Thailand would favor Cambodia much more, especially when all of them, you say three party, but it's just a lot of party out there in Thailand, are all in election mood, in campaign mood, campaign rhetoric is there. Even what they call the progressive opposition is talking about endgame for Cambodia as well.
Yeah.
Supporting the military to go all in with Cambodia, while also pursuing other diplomacy. It could be the least bad option. But it's also very, very challenging for them to come to power. Also, I don't see any party in Thailand. And then we are going to see their movement, their substantial movement, their genuine movement and rhetoric and policy after the election take place itself. We cannot say anything about them. Even their proposal for an endgame with Cambodia is not sure it's genuine. They genuinely believe that. Of course, they fighting the scam industry and stuff, but I'm not sure it's a substantial policy out there for them to go side by side with the military, who just a moment ago they called for reform and taming. But for Cambodia, I think there need to be readiness. There need to be readiness, and you must be ready to talk whoever govern Bangkok in the coming months.
I mean, that's the real outcome of this.
Yeah.
Whoever wins, we have to deal with from the Cambodian side. I mean, that's it. And as Chongpur said, you can't move Thailand. It's not going away.
So, my name is Panya. I'm a junior policy researcher here. A little bit of context. I did my bachelor thesis on Thai elections, and one rule for Thai election is that the election has to happen at the same day nationwide. Considering what is happening in the current Cambodia-Thailand border right now, my hypothesis is that even if there might not be an election, another hypothesis would be, even if there is an election, in Thai history we have seen a dismiss of election result. Let's say if there's conflict going on with my hypothesis, and then Cambodia and Thailand have to revisit the KL agreement, what are the points that Cambodia should include to make sure that there's a preventions to further escalations? Because I'm not so optimistic about a new government being elected. My hypothesis is that the military could take over, and then just for the sake of the military. But back to the question, if there's really a revisit into the KL agreements that either Cambodia and Thailand have to include on their side, what would be the point?
Well, I think on the dynamics of the election, it's a really great question, and I actually haven't looked into it of what, because we do have martial law declared on the Thai side of the border for X number of kilometers, and we do have a significant amount of displaced individuals and refugees in refugee camps on both the sides of the border. How Thailand is planning to structure that in terms of running their national election is an outstanding question. It's not, to be frank, a massive end it or end the legitimacy of the election. Other countries have worked around this in the past. There is a solution moving ahead. Now, in terms of what would come next, let's say we get through it, we get through the election, Thai government comes, we're back to the table, we get back to reinvigoration of the KL agreement. There has to be some further external guarantee. This agreement is not, as we just learned over the last couple of weeks, this was not a self-enforcing agreement, and it's not going to be for some time. Whether it is, as was noted before, whether it is much more global monitoring of the situation, of the border itself, satellites from the United States, from the European Union, from whomever, that obviously would be an excellent way to step forward. Also, I think strengthening the ASEAN monitoring mission. But there needs to be some more clear, more penalties and sanctions for violating it. But in order to make those effective, we precisely need to know who violated it. So having that data is going to be essential. But will we go back to a version of that? Honestly, at this stage, I think all options are on the table. Not necessarily a revisit of the KL Accord, but perhaps a different model.
I think I would go straight to what comes next after the election. I have a lot of proposals earlier, but where to start would be to trying to find a way for the quiet diplomacy between the party and the power broker who don't face elections, especially in Thailand. They could be military, they could be conservative establishment, trying to reconnect the dialogue quietly. Because to do it publicly, it would be more political embarrassment for them, but also they would have faced higher audience costs in Thailand, even though they don't face election at all. But the engagement between the power broker between the two countries need to continue. They cannot go on like this. You can have an endless war, you can have the airstrike, you can have, but it would be impossible to have this kind of situation lasting forever. There need to be an end, there need to be a post-conflict discussion and re-engagement, especially at the very highest levels.
So my question would be, how can Cambodia as a small state respond to the border conflict with its neighboring country, which is Thailand currently? Because as lecturer Chengpo, you already mentioned that Cambodia is an easy target for Thailand. So how Cambodia as a small state manage this issue? Yes, thank you.
Short answer would be to get along well with Vietnam going forward. In the short term, you don't need two-front tension on both sides of the border. At least keep or maintain some sort of the new normal with Vietnam for the short terms. So moving back to my proposal, reinforcing defense at the same time and communicating strategically that deterrent of the higher, smarter, I would not say, I hate this word, they call it innovative defense capability, somewhat, it needs to be communicated. If you have better weapon system, better air defense, the other side need to know. It's a form of deterrent, textbook deterrent. But also at the same time, for Cambodia, is moving away to my earlier proposal as well. The quiet diplomacy, provide assurance, communicate, re-engage, and convince the other side of the border that you are not a threat. No matter how they think about it, just convincing them, providing assurance, trying as much as possible, convincing them that you are not a threat, and re-engage. Yeah.
I move beyond the military side, and I want to give an answer that no one's going to like, which is the easiest way to ensure this doesn't happen again, at least say this happens. We know this flares up, we know this flares up regularly, is to simply make it much too expensive for Thailand. And there's a difficult and challenging but very wonderful way to do that, which is called the East-West Economic Corridor. The more that Cambodia becomes the transit logistics hub that connects southern Vietnam to Thailand and builds up a fully integrated greater Mekong subregion where supply chains flow between these two enormous regional hubs and then helps to further build the Cambodian economy. Yeah, you have a war with Cambodia, that's a huge nightmare. That is a much bigger economic cost. The more we integrate with Thailand in future, the more we...
I think it's on teacher's point is about like they used to different maps. So they need like the intervention from the powerful country like France and the United States. So the question is like, if the France and the United States check two different maps, so which side gain more advantage and for what reason? And if the map favors the Khmer side more than Thai, do you think Thai would agree with this, or would they create a new border map between both countries?
I'm not a map expert. I'm talking as a policy researcher. But also you could also ask if the map favor Thai side, would Cambodia accept it? Cambodia have enough agency to say no to that intervention. But I think if you accept external intervention to expect objective outcome of the negotiation, you need to be ready for this, for whatever the result is. Same like the way that Cambodia trying to bring the 4 points of the border to Mumbai, Tamon Thom, Tamon To, Chakobay to the ICJ. Because the government say, I think if I quote government right at the time, is that let the court decide which side of the border this area belong to. So they are willing to accept the results. So it's about Cambodia willingness to receive the objective and impartial resolution and technical, backed by technical empirical evidence that it comes to. I think that would be very, very welcoming if the French and the U.S., especially those who get in, I think who got involved with the map making are all gone, but their current expert who could come and provide additional support to mediate would be welcoming. And I think I'm not sure about the Thai side. I cannot say on behalf of their behalf. There could be a lot of political consideration whether or not to accept external intervention, which is quite allergic to them, especially in the election season right now. But at least on Cambodian side, will be very welcoming. And I see, based on the evidence with the ICJ move, they are ready to accept the result.
Okay,
Yeah.
we got it. We covered it.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. My name is So Heng. I'm also one of a junior research fellow at Future Firm. So through this stage, actually we say fighting or eruption along the border happened, and when we look into the history, it's just the repeat action. So I interest into the way forward in the future, just like people in the border, they are living, connect with each other, they have good relationship, friendship, brothers, sister, and connect with each other really well. But at the same time, like what we just said, you know, like the situation of the national election and some dissolved position of the leader in Thailand make some eruption occur along the border. So come to the future, we don't want to see this repeat action happen again and again, as it causes mental hostility and also infrastructure and the like. So when we think to that point in the border, during this fighting, we see two major powers like US and China also try to mediate or support the ceasefire, but it still seems like, well, it's not yet the right time. But in the future, we don't want that to happen again. And then, is there any way of the policy making in these two countries to tie up by having those major FDI, foreign direct investment, mainly a lot from, you know, big power country like China? Can they work together and have those kind of major investment along the border and benefit to both side people, you know, like Cambodian and Thailand, and also the investor from the other countries? So can it be possible, the way of fundamental foundation to stop all these repeat action? Because it's just like a bit, you know, a bit boring then again and again and nothing changed, you know. Yeah, that's all from me.
Okay, I think we figured out your junior fellow policy paper, which is going to be this. I really hope, because no, it builds on precisely, and it's a great insight. And I think it's precisely what we were talking about briefly before, the economic side, and that is what POIPET needs to become in future. We have enormous supplies of surplus labor in the Northwest, enormous numbers of migrants who go abroad, et cetera, who need to be brought into manufacturing jobs that need to be built out there. The more that area can build out in terms of connecting to the Thai side through special economic zones or whatever, the more we move away from the scam compound issue, which I'm surprised no one's asked us about, the more we get into, the more that we create those economic costs, but also, and those act as I was saying, a wonderful break on causing chaos or on conflict. It's raising the cost to the point where such a decision simply becomes horrible. And as you very well noted, that investment, again, overwhelmingly likely in future from China, less so from the United States, but that does create more complexity and it creates more challenges. If you're going to be launching artillery into another country, you certainly don't want to be hitting, although I think we saw this already, hitting a factory owned by a great power, citizens or investors from a great power, although that already has happened. But on a small level. So building out that foreign direct investment, doing more cross-border trade integration, I think, yeah, it's what's necessary.
I'm all for it with the investment, joint investment, especially if you get Japanese, Chinese factory on the border. It could somehow function as a de facto border post that could be a prevention for the conflict. But also this is very economically convincing, but we have seen the engagement, economic engagement before. We have seen a lot of the interdependent economically between the two countries. But even those interdependent on the economic side cannot outweigh political consideration when political interests come in your way. So in my opinion, the economic interdependent and a more reconciliatory political process to build more political dialogue between the top leadership between the two countries need to go side by side. You cannot just go all in with economic alone, which is a good proposal, but it needs to go side by side with the political process.
Oh, you've got to build. The trust building is going to be years after. I mean, we have set back regional economic integration by 3 to 5 years. Rebuilding the trust is going to take forever. I mean, and I know it's an emotional response, et cetera, but when I see lists on social media of here's every single Thai firm you should boycott, I mean, my view is just let's make things worse. Let's slow down our GDP growth because let's not achieve the Pentagonal Development Strategy. Oh, you got to give me at least a question. No, this is a hard one, and this is a hard one because it's a variable that's all over the place, and we know it has a role in this story, but we're not entirely certain which role it's playing. Which for me is one of the reasons I'm very cautious in my own analysis, because I know this thing's sitting out here, and I know that it can really act as an intervening variable on a lot of stuff. How does this relate to pressure that China has placed and the United States has placed on Cambodia much more lately than Thailand to get rid of the scam compound question? Thailand shelling a Cambodian a casino, et cetera, that's widely seen as a scam compound. Is that Thailand signaling something to China and the United States that, hey, we're fighting your conflict for you? This is dealing with that. And of course, the sheer amount of money from the scam compound world that is infected everything on not just here, but in Thailand, in Laos, in Myanmar, and so on and so forth. So it's sitting there, and there's a number of different ways it can play out. And I think some of which we just don't see, or at least not aware at least, is publicly how the US and China are viewing the scam compound issue in the context of this. I mean, Cambodia, but I think the one thing we can recognize is that the scam compound issue has hurt Cambodia in this conflict, very practically. Over the last year and a half, 2 years, the amount of attention that's gone on the issue and the amount that Cambodia very tragically has become associated with it has lowered the level of goodwill towards the kingdom. We are the smaller country. We are the country that is, I mean, much smaller military and so on and so forth, the underdog in the story. But the scam compound issue has hurt us. It's hurt us with our ASEAN partners. It's hurt us with the great powers. And it's something that, until it's resolved, is going to basically be a millstone around the kingdom's neck when we need our friends to come in and help us. Because the view is, among some folks, is, well, we're worried about our citizens caught in scam compounds. Maybe fix that, and then maybe we can do more. So I think it has harmed us, and it's starting to show that there are real costs to this problem. They're not just theoretical.
I would like to ask you a little bit, because connect to her questions. She mentioned about bridging between people to people along the border. And I think let's go back to your presentation, because you mentioned about starting to connecting from the scholar to the researching, and also present from the people side, from the top, from the bottom side, bottom to the top, from the people, because historical in Cambodia and Thailand, we experience that maybe I read that it caused us to hate each other, dislike each other. I think maybe it's a root cause some point that we have to bring and to eliminate in terms of discrimination and racism among two countries and bring those kind of people, because refer to the politician when they present about their political view, they always put Cambodian as an enemy. If you go to read the Anutin's in Facebook page in Thailand, you can translate it in Facebook. You can see their enemy. They put Cambodian as the enemy, and I never see the Cambodian government mention about the enemy to the Thai people or to the Thai government. So I think maybe some point, maybe be it the last long peace start from the bottoms, and at some point maybe from the economy side, from the people side, because we can see the people along the border, they are more Thai, more connected. And I hope like maybe the young generation can be connected in the future, and maybe this point can be, maybe at some point maybe peace can be like reconciliation in terms of the people, like we are not hate each other, we are support each other in terms of politics, in terms of economy. I think this is the benefit for us as well, because war is happen every time. You can see 10 years, 30-year war again, we start the conflict again, and sometimes we never share the culture, we never accept it, the culture sharing, the heritage sharing, and in this point maybe we have to figure it out, how can we build that in the future. But maybe you can give more, because your presentation is quite interesting as well.
I mean, may I start? Yeah.
No, it's all yours.
On starting bottom up on that one. I think at least from Cambodian people, we have to do our part to take the high road on that one. Especially also the government also sending positive message, not only within the framework of the lab of this conflict, but from the previous eruptions, that there should be protection for the Thai people living in Cambodia and stuff. So from government perspective on Cambodian side, they try to contain the conflict to the government level, not wanting to expand to the people level. I cannot say I don't have enough evidence on the other side of the border. But I see the same Facebook post by the Thai Prime Minister, the framing of the language and rhetoric. It's quite concerning. But as looking on the other side, I feel positive for the Cambodian side, especially on government level, on the state approach, who do not want to expand this conflict to become the conflict between the people. It just between the two government, between the two military. Let's keep it there. That a positive sign. I think we should keep it that way. And let's see how the other side of the border would respond after election. We understand it's their high fever, election fever now. So yeah, I believe we have to keep it that way. And I'm not sure if we have time for more dialogue in the near future, but whenever possible, people to people, just keep engaging, especially people who talk reason with you. Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to add something. Like, I don't know if Bradley has. I think you mentioned something about that. You said that Cambodia, we use the map from France from 1907 or 1908. That is based on the scale of 1/200,000. And Thai side they use the map created by U.S. during the communist fighting or Indochina fighting that used the scale of 1/50,000. But we didn't ask because Laos was also below the French colony as Cambodia. So what is the border line between Laos and Thailand that agree on? So I heard from the video conference made by a Thai professor. His name is Akrapong Kampoon. I do speak Thai, so I understand it very well. He mentioned that between Thailand and Laos, they use the map on the scale of 1/200,000. So they use the map that invented by the French Commission in 1908. And also in the MOU between the Cambodian government and Thaksin government in MOU 2000, they agree on using the map based on 1/200,000. So why they keep using the map one over 50,000? I just want to mention also, I think maybe in 2008 or 2011 that we have a meeting, the joint GBC or something, I don't remember, between Cambodian Tia Banh, the Cambodian Ministry of Defense, and the Thai side. And when they arrived on the meeting, the Thai side, they gave the map 1 over 50,000 on the table, and then Tia Banh, he break down that map and threw it away. It happened. I want to revise this again to have the question why we have that conflict. I mean, we can go back to Europe with the nation that draw the map. They also had the war in the First World War, Second World War, and after the war, even German attacked France really hard, and after that they become a good friend to make the EU now. You can see that after we can draw the borderline properly, I think everything should be solved, and it should be happen something like this, and it kept repeating the same thing in 2011 and now. It is the same thing if you go back to see the politics back at that time, and now it's almost the same thing. Just the same footprint, and we still let this happen between the Cambodia and Thai. And also as answer to the question how to resolve this. I think before this happened, I also consume the Thai content on YouTube. It has been a hate topic for almost 2 or 3 years. I mean, since the last election in Thailand, it happened like more than 2 years that they had made many content about hate to Cambodia, to the government of Cambodia, and it happened a lot. I have seen that a lot. I blocked those pages. I don't want to follow, but still many of that happened. So I just want to draw back to what has been prepared before this thing happened. Okay, thank you. Just want to add on. It's not a question. Yeah.
Sure. I think on the last point, it's, I mean, in Cambodian-Thai relations, I mean, to paraphrase the Bible, I mean, the border like the poor, I mean, we are always with us. It's reality. This is something that exists in the body politic of both Cambodia and Thailand at all times. It's almost like, I mean, there's a conflict. It's almost like a virus, something that is perpetually there, and it flares up sometimes, and sometimes it's get better, but it's always there. And it's always a component of, as was noted in one of the earlier questions, the othering of the other state. Okay, yes, Thailand's and in terms of defining own nationality and so on and so forth. On the why would you, how can you be inconsistent? Well, my view is that when you're in a situation where the 1904 map you accepted for X number of years, the precedent essentially in The Hague is entirely against you. And privately, Thai colleagues, experts on this topic will say, yeah, Cambodia's got the better case on the map. Cambodia's got, this is very hard for us to come back from. Well, pick another map. I think is pretty much the story here. But going through, but if we move forward so I think that's just where it is. It's a convenient tactical approach to dealing with this question, while essentially rejecting or wanting to move beyond, essentially having accepted the map decades and decades and decades ago.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Just a small correction. The MOU 2000 is not on the Thai side. It's not Thaksin. It's Cholipai government of the Democrat. Yeah.
So hello, this is Panyabot, fresh graduate from ISVP. Perhaps this question is a little bit out of the topic, but I think this is good to end the discussion. So when I look at it as this conflict, I see that populism, nationalism, and short-termism policy might have caused this conflict. So and when I look at it globally, I see that like more and more countries are going that way. So why do you think this is happening, and how can we as a youth, maybe not you are not youth anymore, how can we, how can we as a youth combat this one? Yeah. That's it from my question.
What was the actual final question? Yeah. Could you repeat just give us your final question.
Why are more and more countries going to like nationalism, populism?
Sure.
How can we as youth combat this one?
Sure. Nationalism is not new. Nationalism and nationalism. I mean, nationalism is actually relatively new. It's a creation of the 19th century. I mean, we didn't have nationalism before literacy, before the Industrial Revolution. All of these are modern creations, well set out by the brilliant Benedict Anderson in his book Imagined Communities decades ago. And is it spreading? Yes. Politicians for years have figured out that the rally around the flag effect is very, very successful. It's the easiest way to basically build popular support. There's an entire movie about it in the 90s in the US called Wag the Dog that bears rewatching in light of current events. But one of the things we're seeing today, and it's a great question because you've brought a lot together here in the sense of the rise of nationalism and the rise of nationalism being a core factor in politics and shifting, essentially realigning long-standing coalitions or being a tool used to realign long-standing coalitions is precisely what we're seeing in Western Europe and the United States. The rise of nationalism and the rise of populism. And we're seeing it also not just there. If we look at electoral results in Latin America at present, if you look at the recent, the result that just came out this morning or yesterday of the new president-elect of Chile, very much comes from a right populist side. We saw the change in politics in Argentina. We've also seen in Ecuador governmental change. And a lot of this is, I mean, yes, to some of it in Latin America is because the left's been in control for so long that it's been a bad run. Someone has to be blamed, so you see a shift. But we do see also that with the massive rise of social media, with our entirely changing online culture, that trends that work in one country are rapidly being adopted by oppositions in other countries. They see it work. This is the concern of the 24/7 social media news cycle. But once people are looking and saying, oh, you know what, so-and-so took power, so-and-so actually took over their political party and shifted their entire ideology, brought in new folks by doing this, well, we're going to follow that too. And this is spreading. This is spreading. And much, much more so than 20, 30 years ago. 30 years ago in the United States, when Bill Clinton was elected president, you had folks from the center left, you had folks like Tony Blair coming over and trying to figure out how Bill Clinton had changed the politics of the Democratic Party, how he'd gotten in office after 12 years of Republican government. But that required flights over, study tour, a bunch of meetings, etc. Now you can just watch all the clips on TV, or you can watch all the clips on YouTube rather, and on TikTok and everything else. So this spread is happening very, very quickly. It's very, very global. The question of how to deal with it is much more complex. I don't know. I'm also more of a free speech absolutist, so I get really weirded out when people talk about restrictions on speech or media and things like that. But you've put your finger on something that is going to be a challenge. And here in Southeast Asia, we're not immune. Every country in this region has a very distinct form of nationalism, us included, here in the kingdom. And we have states that we historically define ourselves against, traditionally Vietnam and Thailand. And it's different for different countries. But every country has a variant of this, and it's just going to become a more significant challenge for stability and for long-term cooperation.